So guys, we're running out of weeks to use the first free hit. So in this video, I'm going to take a look at the best free hit team. So let's jump into it. So guys, before we get into the content, before we take a look at my free hit draft, I'm just here to ask if you could please subscribe if you have the time. It takes 2 minutes. Over 60% of my viewers are still not yet subscribed. So if you could do that now, that would be fantastic. So before we take a look at the free hit draft, it's worth actually looking at who to target with the fixtures, right? This is the Fantasy Football Scout fixture ticker. The best teams are at the best teams with the teams with the best fixtures are at the top, and the teams with the worst fixtures are at the bottom. And we can immediately see that Liverpool are right at the top. You know, they have a fantastic home fixture against Wolves, the worst team in the league. Feels like by a distance. I know Burnley are right up there, but Wolves are just, they can't even score a penalty at the moment. So I think investing in Liverpool this week on the free hit just absolutely makes sense, even defensively. You know, they've not been defensively fantastic. Well, they've not been defensively average. You know, they've been poor. So, but I just think this is the fixture, you know, this is the best fixture to back them in. You can also see that Fulham and West Ham are right up there in the top three. They face each other. I think owning attacking assets from maybe both of those sides could be good this week, could pick up some points. Completing the top four is, of course, Everton for their great fixture against Burnley, one of the worst attacks in the league, according to the underlying data. Everton are fairly good in terms of, well, defensively as well. So I think you kind of have to back them. Not as convincing offensively. Obviously, they've lost NDI. You've got Kiernan Dewsbury-Hall, who is now injured as well. But there are plenty of other teams and other fixtures to target in there. You look at Arsenal's home fixture against Brighton, could be a really, really good fixture. Brighton have not been great away from home this season. Arsenal, you know, have been good at home. So it feels like that, you know, a triple up there potentially could be a good idea, or at least a double up. And that goes for Manchester City in their fixture against Nottingham Forest, albeit away from home. You would still you expect Man City to, you know, to do really well there. Outside of that, I do really like the fixture between Bournemouth and Brentford. I think there's going to be a few goals in that actually. So backing both sides attack, I think could be a really good idea. So with all of that in mind, let's now take a look at my free hit draft. So guys, believe it or not, clean sheet odds are tight this week. There aren't many teams expected to keep a clean sheet. So I think backing what we know is probably the best idea, right? I think that's why I've got David Ray. You know, he's got a home game against Brighton, which I think is a good defensive fixture for Arsenal. They kept a clean sheet last time out against Everton, which I think is a good clean sheet to keep, you know, against Everton away from home, a very good clean sheet. So maybe we start seeing Arsenal keep clean sheets again. Raya is obviously one of the safest routes into the fixture. You never quite know if Timber's going to start or not. There's always a little bit of doubt there, isn't there? So for me, Raya is locked in goal. Now, there's plenty of other options you can go for this week, but I think for me, I'm going to stick with Raya. I've also gone for Dubravka in goal, obviously. One of the only playing goalkeepers at his price point. So they are goalkeepers on the free hit. Now, there are loads of defensive options you could pick from this week. And now let's address the elephant in the room. Van Dijk is in this current draft. Liverpool have been very shaky defensively. Van Dijk has been a bit of a nightmare to own. Now, why the hell would we want to put him in a free hit draft? Well, Liverpool do face the worst attack in the league, the worst team in the league, the worst attack in the league this week. In Wolves, I think they've scored less goals than any other side. So it makes sense on a free hit to back Liverpool defence this week. And like I said earlier, there are not a lot of teams expected to keep a clean sheet this week. So yes, we'd be lucky to get a Van Dijk clean sheet even against Wolves. But I think if he does, obviously he has DEFCON potential. He can be a goal threat as well. And talking of goal threat, I think that's why O'Reilly makes the cut. You know, it's a great fixture against Forest. He continues to start for City. He's becoming a really key player at the back now for Manchester City and Pep Guardiola. And he obviously has huge attacking threat. He ranks as one of the best defenders in the league for non-penalty expected goal involvement among all defenders. And I think it's a great fixture for him. Now, Keane, obviously, you know, he feels like a shoe in this week. I think yes, you can go for Tarkowski. But, you know, he's producing a similar, you know, kind of XG. He's producing a similar amount of DAFCONs. I think he's kind of sustaining kind of like 10.8 per 90 minutes, which is very, very good. So we're going to get DAFCONs from Keane. We're probably going to get a clean sheet. And we may also get a goal, of which he's managed 2 of this season. On the bench, there are a couple options you could actually probably start this week, albeit for me, I probably won't. Anderson is a good option. I think away to West Ham. Sorry, I think he's a solid option. He's basically a DEFCON beast. We haven't seen Fulham too many clean sheets, but I still think it's a good option. He's a good option this week. Alderete is an enabler. He's very unlikely to feature for us, and he basically just helps fund money elsewhere. So that is defence. There are a lot of great options this week. There's an argument for, fitting the likes of Timberin. There's an argument for not going for Virgil van Dijk, which I completely understand. An argument for going for Tarkowski or someone else in the Everton back line. But I really like O'Reilly. I think I like Van Dijk. I think I like him. And I really like Keane this week. So that would be my free hit defence. So this would be my midfield this week. Obviously, Semenyo got a goal last time out against Burnley, but his data has been pretty good. Bournemouth continue to kind of, prove they are not relegation candidates this season, albeit, again, a lot of people thought they could potentially be them this season. But I just think a game against Brentford are not keeping many clean sheets. Recently, it's not looking great for them. So I think Semenyo feels like an absolute shoe-in this week. I'm very happy to own him outside of the free hit. But if I didn't own him and I was free hitting this week, he would be a definite for me. I've also got Foden, another shoe-in. He's been fantastic. He blanked in the last match, but outside of that, 4 double-digit hauls in a 5-match period. He's been one of the most explosive assets in the game. So I definitely wouldn't be leaving him out this week. I've also stuck with Saka. His non-penalty expected goal involvement is better than most midfielders in the game. In fact, I think he ranks among the top 4 or 5. Now, even without pens, he's evidently, dangerous. I think Brighton have been leaky this season. I think a home fixture for Arsenal is a very, very good one. Long term, yes, Rice is probably a good alternative. There's an argument to fit Bruno in ahead of Saka, but there's a good chance that he kind of hauls this week. Good chance he takes the next penalty for Arsenal. So for me, if I was free hitting this week, he would also be in there. I also like Wilson. I think there's not many good options around that price point. He has a great fixture against West Ham, who defensively have been very, very poor this season. And Wilson, I think he's managed like 40 points in his last 5 matches, which is quite ridiculous. I own him in my own team, but I would definitely free hit him in this week. And obviously on the bench is Xhaka. I think he could be a good option at 5 million. He's only a sub. He's unlikely to feature this week, but if he does, he's got a good fixture against Leeds. I think that would be my midfield. Again, there's an argument to get maybe Rice in there, maybe get Bruno in, maybe even a 5th midfielder, but a 4-man midfield, and these guys are who I'm going with on this draft. Now, a lot of people straight away are going to be extremely triggered that I have got Icor Thiago in this free hit draft this week. Yes, he's been frustrating. Yes, he's not going to get a penalty every week. And yes, his data has been poor, but Bournemouth have only kept 1 clean sheet in their last 8 matches. And Thiago is still a penalty taker. He's still a good, comes in at a good price point and still spearheads a pretty decent Brentford attack. So as frustrating as he has been, I think he's probably still a better option than most midfielders around his price point or just below this week. So for me, as I said earlier, I think, Brentford and Bournemouth, there's going to be goals in that game. And I'd want kind of the star men from each side, which is why I've included Thiago. I've also included Ekitike, who a lot of people would be potentially looking to bring in this week, probably on pans without Szoboszlai, Salah, Isaac injured. So he could be probably one of the standout assets to own this week. He's playing against a very, very poor Wolves, the worst defence in the league. So having Ekitike feels like an absolute shoe-in on a free hit. And then, of course, Erling Haaland for captaincy. He's been absolutely relentless this season. So consistent. In fact, going against him in terms of captaincy has not been good mostly for anyone. So this is the front three I would go with. I am quite quite happy with this, actually. I think obviously there's an argument to go with a 5-man midfield, but that would mean going without Thiago, who I'm sure people will be happy to go without after his recent performances. But I think it is very risky, with his ownership against a dodgy Bournemouth defence, to not go with him. So for me, really like that front three, and I really like the free hit draft. So guys, thank you for joining me yet again. If you did enjoy that video, please hit that subscribe button as I chase 1K subs by the end of the season, and I'll see you guys again soon.